few weeks ago, we had a session with Prakash Chandra sir, where Luke Gracia sir from Australia also discussed a lot of things about green fuel, and we have an expert today with us. So, Chris, this is a uh, college alumni group. So, all the people joining today are from same institute. So, and it is a paramilitary. Seniors we call. So there is a paramilitary thing. So, for example, Luke Gracia sir is our senior. Like he passed out in 80s. I passed out in 11. And all the audience here are marine engineers. Everyone is a marine engineer. And most of the marine engineers, seniors, are in decision-making positions in shipping. Some of them are technical superintendents, some are heading shipping, director in shipping. So your session is very important for them as we are proceeding towards net zero and these things. Green fuel are going to play a very important role in maritime industry. So Prakash Chandra also discussed that Methanol Institute played a huge role in these things. And we would be happy to Chris spent almost a decade as a chief operating officer of the Methanol Institute. So I would like to welcome Chris on behalf of all the DMT alumni out here. And I would also like him to explain his journey, how he got into this, and what all conspired to be in his journey right now, because there are a lot of things which are beyond our control, even in our career. So if you can explain like how it all started for you. So it will be great for us to know what conspired and how you are here. So welcome, Chris. Welcome to the session. Happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pratik. Thank you for reaching out and organizing this. I caught up with another colleague of mine from fleet management on a similar program very recently. So that was also very useful for me to get his takeaways. And yeah, certainly a big shout out to Prakash and to Niti Ayag and even Honorable Mr. Gadkari. We've worked quite extensively with over the years to bring methanol to the forefront in India and beyond. So yeah, as you pointed out, I spent about a decade with the Methanol Institute, and in that role, I was the chief operating officer with a mandate to bring methanol into the marine bunkering space. So there had already been some work initiated at that time, going back to 2009, with companies such as Methanex, Stena-Line, MAN, ENS, so MAN Engines, and Wärtsilä. So primarily these three organizations were at the very heart of bringing methanol on board ships as a fuel. And there have been many developments. I guess I could just highlight the key milestones of the past, say, 10 years, and that would be Wärtsilä and Stena-Line retrofitting the Stena Germanica. That was about circa 2012. Came into service around 2014, 15, and it's been bunkered short a ship since that time. The second, I suppose, major milestone was when Methanex's wholly owned waterfront shipping organization launched a series, initially 7 methanol dual fuel tankers, MRs, 50,000 deadweight, running on methanol. There was a period of about 5 years running on these and an additional 6 vessels, several of which were managed by other independent ship management companies. But again, key milestone was when we were able to effectively announce that the first generation of methanol dual fuel technology engines was complete. They were running as they were supposed to, and we had accumulated over that time about 150,000 operating hours on methanol. That took about 5 years. And then it was shortly after that, in 2020, that methanol was confirmed for inclusion in the IGF code, with already at that point in time 8 vessels trading internationally on methanol. So that was a major milestone, and that milestone, inclusion of methanol in the IGF code at IMO level, combined with the 150,000 plus hours of operating time on those engines of MAN, convinced Maersk to then place an order for 12, 8 plus an option for another 4 of new design and much larger bore engines, 90 bore engines, to run on methanol dual fuel based on the MAN's MELGIM platform. So that was another turning point in the market. And upon the delivery of the first vessel, and I guess you could say the consecutive 4 vessels now from Maersk that are in service, combined with several other vessels from Express Feeders, methanol bunkering has actually kicked off very recently this year. So we're now beginning to see, as of 2024, the commercialization of methanol as a ship fuel, and the beginnings of that. So we're at a very significant inflection point, and we're still waiting on a bit of policy, but that's where we're at today in the market. So my role in this was, for the most part, paralleling these milestones and stewarding, you could say, methanol from a policy perspective, from a commercialization perspective, and certainly from a trading and logistics and supply perspectives to bring it to market and to play a role, a minor role in the creation of the market itself. So,
extraordinary journey you have had. So, so throughout this month, this green fuel thing, everything is very challenging for maritime industry to accept, because in last session also we discussed that at times retrofitting is not very cost effective. So what is your take on that? And as far as methanol is concerned, or any green fuel?
well, yeah, you're right. The economic merits around retrofitting are subjective, you could say. But having said that, the first vessel to enter service, on a commercial basis, was the Stena Germanica, and that was a retrofit with based on Wärtsilä 4-stroke engines. These were Sulzer units actually, but again, those 4 engines have performed flawlessly, I could say, touch wood, for the greater part of 10 years. The bunkering was also developed at the same time, so methanol is quite close to a drop-in fuel with respect to, say, low sulfur fuel oil or light distillate. So it's lower price point, of course, but which has some handling specifics that need to be adhered to. But beyond that, it's quite safe, as we've proven over the past decade with the Germanica and with many other vessels now having been retrofitted. So it's a very good entry point into the market. So you don't have to, at least with methanol, there isn't the significant, say, quantum leap, you could say, which is required if to go to a gas vessel. Then you're really looking at a new build. With methanol, though, it's again liquid at ambient temperature, so that says a lot, and it definitely has an impact on the capex as well as the opex. Methanol is a universal product, you could say, so it's widely available in its conventional specification, and on that basis, its retrofit can be fairly quick to market. These can be done in say consecutive dry docks to retrofit based on an electronically controlled engine.
In last session also, Luke sir had some question about regarding commercial viability of methanol. So I would like to invite Luke sir to like share his experience and ask Chris those questions, because I guess he will be the right man to answer this question. One of the reason why we brought Chris was because of there were some questions which were unanswered on commercial aspect of methanol. So.
Chris, here. Hi, Luke. It's Luke here. I guess the first question I asked last time around was also dealing with everybody's fighting for the same hydrogen molecule, whether it's from natural gas, whether it's from biomass or whatever. I spent time recently in Geneva with the IATA, and they were talking about putting 100 billion liters into the air by 2030. We just don't have the feedstocks on Earth to put that without natural gas. It's the same problem with methanol, is that it's all very well, we all know it works, but the question is, where are we going to get the supply from? And when you don't have supply and you've got demand, the price just goes through the roof. That normally is the way the world works. So I guess that was the question I had, is the supply chain seems to have a lot of holes in it in terms of getting to where the 300 plus million tons of marine fuel you're going to need a year. And where is the methanol market today, which isn't spoken for, because much of it is already spoken for. So that was my question, saying that it's a giant step, and where do you see yourselves going from there?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question, literally, or maybe $1 billion question. So, as I mentioned, methanol is a universal product, so it has that going for it. But at the same time, as you mentioned, it can also be quite interesting to be used on the, say, alcohol to jet pathway, which means it could be pulled into aviation. It's being widely used already in land transportation, on internal combustion engines, even on M100 engines. So we don't have even the need to burn it, for example, to enhance combustion with pilot fuel in these types of engines. And those engines, I can say, are now have seen 2 orders already, one in Europe, one in China, for short sea shippers. They will not have any redundant fuel on board, so no fuel oil, except save for a bit of pilot fuel. So this is maybe a 3% requirement for these types of vessels, general cargo vessels. And they're doing that because government is keen to support these types of vessels, which can limit the pollutants. So not necessarily the greenhouse gases, but we're talking about PM, and we're talking about SOx, and we're talking about NOx, all 3 of which are very influential on human health, where there are large concentrations of human population around these port facilities and terminals. So that's happening. And there have been numerous independent forecasts calling for up to 500 million tons of additional methanol to be produced, say, by 2050. Maybe. That's a combination of, say, conventional methanol, which isn't expected to grow that much over the transition. It's also including almost 50-50 biomethanol as well as e-methanol. It's really anyone's guess as to whether or not we can come close to that number anytime soon. But I can say that based on more recent analysis, looking at where the critical feed investments are taking place, one in the renewable power market, which is really India and China, then we can see what who are the off takers for this renewable power, and because it is both the renewable power as well as the grid have to be invested in and have to be developed at the same pace. Otherwise, there's not enough grid capacity to onboard this power because it's intermittent. It means that some of this power might be more effectively used to produce hydrogen. So that is why we see such a big buildup in China specifically, and particularly because they are making substantial investments into the renewable power production side. The grid has yet to keep up, and so they also feel that they're best placed to move quite a big portion of this renewable power into production of green hydrogen. And then once you get to that marker, then you have to make a decision already about the next technology development. What hydrogen derivative are you going to produce? Because it's difficult to move hydrogen very far geographically. So this has come down to methanol and ammonia, a little bit maybe further away in a shipping application. Ammonia in a, say, power plant, decarbonization enhancer, you could say, is definitely on, and that will be the key application for a lot of this ammonia that's being developed right now. And the same, say, of India. There was a couple of recent ammonia projects which were announced that that product will also be likely headed to Europe. And there is quite a bit of product already being moved into the various coal-fired facilities, which will not be taken down anytime soon. So we will continue to rely heavily on fossil fuels, whether it's fuel oil or coal or otherwise gas, for quite a number of years or decades while we build up this renewable capacity. So I don't know if that answers your question, but you can follow the numbers. You can see where mainly the government budgets are pushing. You can see China, US to a lesser extent, but out of the 2 trillion last year that was spent on renewable energy, half of that was in China. So, and they are producing a lot of the equipment as well. So the solar, wind, and otherwise. So yeah, that's where we see at least initially, that's where we see it coming from. And that's why we suggest that China will set the price floor for these products. Green methanol and green ammonia in the near term anyway.
Well, thank you.
And by setting the price floor, I mean they're clearly at this stage the lowest cost producer, but again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will control the market, but that they will definitely provide the most say reliable benchmark for other countries and other regions to then begin to factor into how they will market their products accordingly.
Anyone has any question for Chris regarding the same? Yes, Dilip sir, yes.
What did you say your name was?
Chris.
Chris.
Yes.
Chris, Dilip Mukherjee.
Hi, Dilip.
Hi. I've been living in Melbourne in Australia for about 42, 43 years. We are not a maritime nation. The reason is the cost of running a ship under an Australian flag is too expensive. We can't afford it.
Mm.
So all our ships are pushed out to the third world countries and Panama, like Liberia and all that. So what I did is I studied economics at the School of Economics.
Mhm.
And for the last 15 years or so, I moved into business of sales of capital equipments, like air compressors and diesel generators.
Mhm.
So therefore, my question will be more based on economics, not on engineering. First question is, do you have a lobby group to lobby politicians, to lobby big companies, to lobby even people like me? I got an engineering background and economics degree. You have to convince me.
Yeah, yeah,
So do you have people to do that?
yeah, yeah. That's the other $1 billion question. So you hit it just right, 1 and 2. So availability, and who's going to produce all this fuel to begin with, and then the other side of it is well, how much is it going to cost? And at the moment, based on say 35 in service, the general consensus is that the green methanol, which is one of the first fuels to biofuel, is very expensive compared to fuel oil, and you're right. It's very difficult to explain to shippers and to even at the IMO level or with European policymakers who are very influential on IMO and on the market in general, on the production side even, that it requires not only setting targets, we're going to be carbon neutral by 2050 or something, but you have to then provide the right incentives for these groups to produce the fuel and for shippers to want to buy it as well, and they have to commit funds to purchasing the vessels that will be capable of burning it. Yeah, these are special engines. These types of future fuels are not your father's fuel. And not definitely not your grandfather's fuel. So these are very new. It requires a lot of training. So that's one of the areas that we focus on most: training from a seafarer's perspective. On the affordability, yes, we're speaking a lot with governments, with policymakers globally, and there are a number of groups which are very intimately involved in all these processes, such as the Getting to Zero Coalition, Maersk McKinney Moeller Center for Zero Carbon Shipping, and quite a few others. There are quasi platforms that are now in place which are designed to do the same thing. So bring best practice, combine it with transfer of knowledge, and then provide the key benefits to policymakers to allow them to draft effective policy. So these are called or referred to as green corridors, and there are a number of these, over 60, I think, official green corridors, but the most significant ones are less than 10. And those are the green corridors, which include Australia to China, Australia to Singapore, Brazil to China, Singapore to LA, Seoul to LA. There are a couple of Indian green corridors, as well as quite a few now between China and say rest of the world. Again, based on this ability to produce affordable green electricity, which they're doing a good job at. A lot of investments, and I can say they're definitely greatly influencing other countries to do the same. So we're moving to electricity, broadly speaking. But then what we do with that electricity is the next question. And because we're at a point in time with respect to these future fuels and shipping, where these projects that are now coming online, and for example, with ammonia, we have about over 200 projects, but most of them mainly remain on paper, or they have yet to achieve FID, because they have people like yourself in front of them asking in the same question: who are you going to sell it to, and who's going to pay the price you need to to provide me as an investor a market return. So, but it's important to note that these projects are, say, pilot scale. It won't be until they reach scale, which is going to take probably another 5 years for any of these fuels, before they will begin to realize some more serious economies of scale. And we see that now happening. For example, last week, one of the major electrolyzer technology companies in China just introduced a 5,000 cubic meter electrolyzer unit. So very big, twice as big as the next largest unit available in the market. And it has some additional efficiency measures in place, so it can produce hydrogen even more efficiently than their previous models. So with these pilots comes innovation, and with innovation it becomes more efficient, and with more efficiency can lead to, like I say, economies of scale, and the price gradually, just like we've seen in solar panels, batteries, EVs, vehicles, things like this. Just as we've seen the price of those products come down, we'll see the same with these future fuels. But at the moment, it's very much about making the market. And I think we've heard from major shippers like Maersk, CMA CGM, Evergreen, Costco, and others that, yes, they understand that for the next few years, they're going to have to play a lead role, and they will have to support the market a bit with market-based measures together with governments, and that will allow the market to move forward on a more cost-effective basis. So there's a better balance between producers and consumers.
Thank you.
But it's quite expensive. I can say with respect to methanol, the prices have already, though, beginning to show signs of coming down already, even just after years of say producing it. It's been produced as pilot scale for 10 years, but only more recently, when projects began to be looked at on a feasibility and pre-feasibility basis, on a more formal basis, where we had more serious lenders and economists such as yourself asking hard questions, then you've seen the producers begin to be weeded out very fast, and they're forced to go with top technology companies to underpin the guaranteed specification, and hence the market price that they feel they can justify. And over the past year, we've seen, even before these vessels began trading in methanol, we've seen the price come down by about 10% already. So they're finding ways to become more competitive with, the more projects are announced and the more organizations come into the market. So.
My final question will be an easier one. My question is, has anybody in your organization has done, which is normally done in economics, a cost-benefit analysis
for ships, or for
your product, for the industry, your product for the industry?
Yeah, and that's like they like to say, that's where the rubber hits the road, right? and I can say that there's a big gap between producers of these new fuels and the consumers. So one, they don't understand each other. There's no common language, really. They don't understand well enough, how this fuel is produced, at what cost structure, and they just need fuel. It's not their core business to understand what these guys do. They just want to buy it, put it on their ship, and keep going about business. So we spend a lot of time bridging this gap and bringing those groups closer together, so we have a better understanding. We do this with training. We do this through targeted workshops, and always with just exactly what you're saying, cost benefit. So I always ask, if someone asks me, hey, what's the price of, ammonia or say green methanol, then we always have to ask, well, what do you need it for anyway? Have you done your own analysis? And what do you need it for? If you're not telling us that you need it because you need to reduce your emissions, then you probably don't need it. So, and if you need it to reduce your emissions, then you should already understand how much you need to spend to be able to onboard however much percentage of green methanol to enable your vessel or your fleet to decarbonize, so that you can hit your CI, rating, and not go afoul with existing IMO measures, because all ships now that are IMO registered are now regulated by a CII, carbon intensity indexation, and it's a sliding scale, but you don't have forever to bring any of your ships under compliance. If you're not compliant, you won't be able to maintain your ship registry. So therefore, that's a cost, and therefore you have to take that cost and identify what benefits, whether they're efficiency measures, investments that are going to improve the efficiency, which will reduce your fuel costs, which will reduce your carbon intensity, allow you to remain compliant, or maybe you need to consider completely switching fuels, and which is much more expensive, but it's a much bigger jump, and much bigger benefit. So how badly do you need that benefit? That's what you have to ask yourself. And then the rest of the questions are very logical. So for example, in the European Union, they have very strict policies. So any vessels voyaging to European Union must burn for half that voyage 50% carbon neutral fuel. Inside the EU, same, only carbon neutral fuel. So what to do? If you have to comply to this, then you know what you can easily calculate the cost, and the benefit is more of a, it's a big stick. So you need the benefit to avoid the big stick. So it's like a carrot, but not a very big carrot, because the stick is much bigger. So if you don't comply, then you're just out. Someone will take your place. So it's quite stringent, and the EU maritime policy is been piloted already this year, with indicatively about 3 billion in potential fines likely to be assessed for next year to the various vessels. January 2025, EU maritime begins officially, so we will begin tracking all this, and these fines will then likely be assessed. They'll be redistributed to those that are burning green fuels. There are other mechanisms in place that are being proposed to the IMO for the same purpose, so that I can maybe convert one vessel, I can onboard some green fuel, I can receive a benefit, and I can distribute that benefit across my fleet. If I have 10 vessels or if I have 800 vessels, it doesn't matter. I get the benefit of reducing the carbon intensity of my fleet just based on one vessel. And there's been a lot of analysis on that, on the cost benefit analysis. So in general, I can remain compliant, say, to 2030 based on one vessel, and then redistributing the benefits from burning green fuel on that one vessel plus 10 additional vessels in my fleet. So 10% fix, which I can make available to the rest of my fleet. This is pooling mechanism in EU. At the IMO, it's referred to as book and claim. So cost and benefit is intimately associated with those. And there's another green balance mechanism, which is designed to do the same. So,
thank you for answering that.
Yeah, thanks for being so kind as to explain in detail. But from what I understand, you don't have any competitors.
No, actually, a lot of competitors they're different. So again, there are still many there are still, how to say, still many interests in supplying even the green fuel, and there's a lot of interest from the producers to also produce and supply directly this green fuel. But as I mentioned, the producers and the consumers, the shippers, don't always speak the same language, so it's very difficult for them to reach an agreement. These people would like, the producers would like 10-year offtake agreements, provide them with fuel. The shippers. Shippers, of course, are maybe they put a 1-year agreement in place. Maybe not even that. They just buy on a spot basis, typically around the world. So this is a much different way to even transact with these fuels. And in many cases, it's going to take government intervention to balance the expectations. Between Australia and Singapore, I can say there's many of these mechanisms now coming into play to offset, say to equalize. Australia is considered to be a high cost producer, even though they have considerable access to renewable power, still a high cost producer. But Singapore is the biggest bunkering market, and it's very, it's a good trading hub, and it's very close, very close. So the logistics are pretty simple. So the two governments already understand that they should definitely be working together, and they can definitely help each other and leverage off each other to for mutual benefit, of course. And the same is taking place in China. China also recognized that we're a big producer, not maybe so good at trading it. Singapore doesn't produce anything, but they're very good traders, and they provide the platform by which everyone can participate in transparently and purchase fuel and bunker fuel. So there are new corridors being put in place between China also and Singapore to affect that and to accelerate the transition. So to get these fuels to market sooner, and we're working the same with two organizations in Australia, and we're targeting to bring them their product, that is, to Australia, or sorry, to Singapore.
Thank you.
Yeah, Pankaj sir has, I believe, a question for you, Chris.
Hi, Pankaj.
Hi, sir. Good afternoon. My question is regarding this with respect to the field sort of question, like for the perspective of ship staff, like what safety precautions and what special procedures or some different procedures ship staff has to carry out when they are using bunkering these fuels, and then they are storing it and then using it. So what is additional apart from our conventional fossil fuels? So methane and the methanol is going to be blended in the conventional fuels to reduce its carbon footprint, or it will be a pure methanol which will be bunkered. So what is IMO doing with respect to the training of ship staff? Because for handling this stuff, I don't think that most of the ship staff is competitive and aware of the hazards associated with these things.
Yes, you're right. At the IGF code level at IMO, they do address training, and if you were to inquire on any of the numerous training facilities globally, they would say that they train to SCTW standard and or maybe to IGF code, but there's nothing really mentioned actually about ethyl alcohol training as such, or how to bunker it. So on some of the first vessels that were delivered, even just recently, in fact, we were called in to go on board after the ship had already been delivered ahead of their maiden voyage to show the crew how to bunker methanol, because they just, they weren't showed, they weren't demonstrated, they had no knowledge of it. So and in the very early days, when these methanol dual fuel engines were onboarded, we had the same experience with crew not wanting even to go into the engine room, yeah, because they weren't, they had no idea what they were getting into.
Yeah, they are very afraid. Yeah, and they are unaware actually.
Yeah, so that took some time to overcome, and we spent a lot of time, training, explaining, what it is, methanol, for example, in this case. With respect to ammonia, for example, that has some even more toxicity issues than methanol. And I know even at with at least one of the engine OEMs, they were also had the same situation, just to get their own engineers to be comfortable with working with ammonia as a fuel in their test bed facility, because they also like, hey, we know everything about engines, but we don't know what's going to keep us safe. Who's thought to say we just don't show up one day and it's all over by lunchtime, because it's so toxic. So again, these fuels, yeah, you're right, they require different knowledge. There are many organizations which are now developing safe handling guidelines and also even bunkering guidelines. We have been, like I say, bunkering methanol for quite a while. There isn't much experience, I can say, for ammonia. It's still coming. It will come, but it needs some time. Yeah, there's no ammonia engines as a fuel out there at the moment. There are product carriers, of course, but we've also had methanol product carriers for decades. It's one of the top seaborne traded commodities globally. But using it as a fuel is much different. Yeah. So yeah, the training needs to reflect that. And that's also why we developed such a comprehensive training program based on best practice, because there was nothing else in the market. And I can say the people who are leading it from our team are captains, first officers, chief engineers, and they've all been intimately involved with the buildup of methanol as a ship fuel for again the same 10-12 years that I've been involved with it. And again, ammonia coming, LNG is fairly well looked after. I think now it's LNG bunkering is available in almost 30 ports globally, so it's reasonable. Maybe the actual suppliers are limited, but the bunkering is quite readily available, and safe handling procedures are in place. But again, those were also done, offline to the IMO, so more like private initiative, to put those in place, and then working very closely with the ports, and then class to be able to class it so it's safe. We're doing the same with methanol, so we have our own training facilities. We're looking now, probably next year we'll get more involved in India actually, and it's just a natural progression, you could say. And we're working with all the top shippers who have methanol dual fuel vessels coming to train their crew. But usually this is done, say, a month or 2 months ahead of delivery of the vessel. So when they pool the crew together, then they send them on site. So we're working with them, and in fact, working more in a hands-on way to be on site when they take delivery, to show them how to bunker the methanol. So that's something they won't get in any facility. I can say that for sure. When we work with MAN's Prime Serve Academy in Shanghai, and we're looking at doing some more work with them outside of Shanghai, also in support of this as well. So when they're doing sea trials, things like this, typically been bunkering shore to ship. So that will change, moving now to, because there's a lot of these vessels beginning to make some congestion around the yards. So we will look to do ship to ship, and at the same time having to train up crews, because in most cases they're not using say bunkering vessels, they're using small product carriers, and then make and bunkering, like that, but it's not a proper way to do it. And yeah, there are some some specifics with sampling, with fuel testing, etc., that have to be taken into account, which you won't find in any training facility. I can say, other than maybe if you're working with Green Marine, or maybe one of the organizations that we work with, such as Wavelength here in Singapore, and others in China, and soon India. So yeah, it's we're also concerned because we don't want to have any incident on board. This is a nascent industry, and these are very, very immature markets. So we don't want to have any kind of incident with respect to bunkering, and that's kind of the one area that could be could produce could produce an ignition source, for example. And you have different vapors that you're working with instead of fuel oil, and so vapor return and pressure. And here in Singapore, we're working with mass flow meters, so a lot of things to take into consideration. So yeah, it's a big focus on the market.
So I got, sir, that you as a supplier of this fuel will have some sort of responsibility to train also. So that is a sole your company's initiative. But I just want my intention is to discuss at IMO level, where we have our basic courses, advanced courses. So people are doing IGC gas, the crew which is going on the gas carriers, they are doing this related to the gas. But the perception of the ship's crew is that IGC code is for the deck department, because engine department, although they have certificate, but they never go into the details, because it's just for they're going on that vessel, so they have a certificate, but they never handle the cargo.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
yeah, in this case, yeah, the engine crew will be directly handling this cargo or bunker, let us say a bunker. So as a statutory measure, is there any amendment which has been carried out? Because the bunkering scope is a different scope, cargo scope is a different scope. So earlier we had these codes made for cargo operation. So now what amendments did they carried out with respect to the bunkering scope in the IGC code, or this the training part?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's the whole reason why we're so involved in the training, because it does, like I say, it just doesn't exist, and it doesn't exist at the IGF code level either. So we're working with, as I mentioned, Singapore's MPA. They're quite influential in this space. They want to have previously we had requested that IMO mandate ISO for methanol bunkering standards and guidelines. So that standard will be announced before the end of this year from the ISO, and it will be transferred back to the IMO. They're saying, here, we've completed our mandate. Here is how methanol should be bunkered, and this is the standard by which which all this fuel should be traded on as a marine fuel. So they will have these two things will go to back to IMO, and we're thinking that by MEPC 83, which is April, there will be two intersessional working groups, one in February and one in just a week before the MEPC. So it will be addressed there, and we will also look to introduce ethanol as another ship fuel. Again, some differences with using it as a fuel on a ship versus, say, in a car or bus, and also handling it a little bit different. So we'll introduce this at the same time.
Okay.
So yeah, it's MPA will be behind this. IACS will be behind it. Intertanko, Intercargo. Quite a few observers at the IMO level will be supporting these initiatives. Yeah.
Yeah, then it is fine. If it goes to IMO, then it will be implemented. Yeah. then it is fine. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Prakash has a question for you.
Hi, Prakash.
Hello.
Uh,
Okay,
Well-
okay, that's wait.
Chris, we
How are
have
you?
been working together on this for a long time now. And nice to see you here. Sorry, I joined late. I was in India. I just arrived and, so I joined this meeting 30 minutes late. So I don't know what you have already said. I will read it again and Pratik will put it in the post. But I was just trying to, make Pankaj a little bit more comfortable because Pankaj, Chris has been working with Methanol Institute. They have been the people who have been setting up or guiding IMO and different bodies like we work with Itatanco and SGMF, all these body. Chris has been helping people to make aware of methanol. And from the day one, when methanol was thought to be made as an engine, from that time in 2016, he's there. Chris is there. And what happened initially, methanol was not listed under fuel under any IMO regulations. So 16 to 21, 2020 December, it was adopted into the fuel, put into the category of fuel. So to answer your question, you're talking about IGC code and IBC code. All the vessels which are fueled by methanol or ethanol or say ammonia, which is not a gas code vessel or chemical code vessel, they are guided by IGF. So all regulations are there for the training and everything is only one, IGF. IGF was initially designed by IMO to cover the LNG fuel vessels, not only not LNG fuel ships, not LNG ship, but the ships which are not LNG but fueled by LNG. So all the training courses, whatever was available before, was all designed for LNG. So when you're sending a crew to do IGF training, they are not training them for fighting methanol fire. They're training them to fight methanol LNG fire, basically in the IGF course. So this weakness was caught by various flag states, including this Indian government took a big lead on this, and India is giving the largest number of seafarers. So the DG Shipping was working on this. Mr. Vikrant Rai was leading this project, and then they developed Chris and Clean Marine. They have developed a full methanol course. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about initially what happened. So then DG made a half-day supplement and enforced all ships in India to carry out. If you are going on a methanol fuel vessel, you have to do this half-day supplement on how to deal with methanol with respect to toxicity and fire. Because methanol, you cannot fight fire, like you use the water and fire. The methanol fire is always invisible. You can't see it. To see the methanol fire, you need the thermal imaging cameras. Then all you can see what is methanol, and then you try to fight the fire with all this the foam. Foam is the best thing to fight fire, which is compatible with methanol. So I was just trying to add that, Pankaj, to what Chris said this until now.
Yes.
And
Yes.
IGF code is covering all low flash point fuel, all low flash point fuel used on other ships which are not IGC code built ships or IBC code built ship. So I just want to clarify this. But I have a question for Chris, so I'll come back on that. So
Thank you,
if
sir.
it is
Thank
okay to you, Pankaj, then I'll talk
Yes,
to
sir.
Chris.
Yeah. Now it is, very clear. Yes, sir.
Yeah, initially there was no in the last blog when I was there, I said there was no course available only for methanol. It's all IGF and mainly designed to LNG. Chris, my question to you, we have met so many times, and thank you for keeping so much interest and still being out of Methanol Institute. You're putting so much time on methanol. So my question was, like I have been working in this forum together with you now long time, almost more than 10 years. But I asked this question also to Gregory, also to the waterfront people. Methanol Institute is giving the ability of green and gray or blue methanol only up to 2029. Maybe recently they added 2030, I'm not sure. but the ability is only there till 2029. So for a person like, for me, who has to guide owners and advise them how to go ahead, because you see, when Musk happened, everybody got very worried. Like, you see this, the Pacific Basin have declared that they want to go methanol way. Initially they were working with ammonia, but then they say, no, we'll go methanol. And right now, people are a little bit reserved, conservative to go methanol way. So so the owners are coming to me and telling me, can you give me projection to 2050? I don't have projection till 2050. They want a cost projection you have until 2029 on Methanol Institute website. How about 2040? How about 2050? That's the main question which the the owners have for ordering the methanol fuel vessel today.
Oh, yeah, and yeah, you're right. These are the top. These are our top concerns, and we share them, with shipping wholeheartedly. If I step back 10 years to LNG pricing, yeah, and we've seen how that has developed. LNG has come down substantially, yeah, and I'm talking about even on a much larger level than, say, shipping, and shipping, same costs for LNG have come down, substantially, except for maybe, European based, because they were so intimately associated with Russian gas production and supply. But most other parts of the world, it's costs have come down, substantially, and technology has played a key role there. Methanol, the same. It's also highly commoditized, high availability, stored everywhere. So that's why you don't see the beta for methanol pricing. It's very low. It's less than 1, because it's so commoditized. We see very few spikes, and then it will come back down. At the moment, I can say it's very cheap. Yeah, this year hasn't been a great year for methanol, conventional methanol producers, and with biofuel, a little bit of the same. We've had a lot more production around it, so the prices have more or less stabilized. I can't say they're coming down substantially, but stabilized a lot. With SAF, same. So it was quite expensive the past, say, 3 or 4 years, but with the addition of more projects, more pathways coming, say ethanol to jet, methanol to jet, we know these cost structures very well. Yeah, we've been working with methanol to gasoline, methanol to olefins. Methanol to jet is no stretch. This is not new technology. Yeah, it can be, of course, refined. It can be improved, but it's not new technology. So we see these improvements and technological enhancements already coming to market. So the prices will eventually come down. And with respect to green methanol, I can say in China, because that's where it's happening already at scale. They've achieved some limited but scale, and they brought already some innovations, not huge, but they're coming, and they're being implemented immediately. So the price, even for green methanol, 1 year ago, when we were producing in China, maybe a little over 1 million tons, to today, maybe it's close to 2 million tons. Prices have come down by almost 10%. Prices, not a lot available yet, but prices coming down already. So it will be. I think it will follow a similar trajectory as some of the other alternative fuels, and eventually we will get there. But it's not going to be. It's exactly like you say. It's probably going to be 2029, 2030, by the time it's more affordable. And in the meantime, we expect to have some equalizations or equalizing factors, introduced, like Fuel EU, green balance mechanism, other market-based measures to make it more affordable. Yeah. So the policy is the main holdup at the moment.
I understand. So right now we are looking at China to become as the largest green methanol producer, because once the company in the Denmark, forget the name, which the methanol was Musk was supporting, has now withdrawn. So we were at loss. But then last week in trade winds, last week I believe, no, last week, Musk came back with a statement saying that no, LNG is, we are not supporting LNG, right? I think 2 weeks back they came in the trade wind saying that. But to me, as a user of methanol as a fuel on my ships, for me, if I am asked for a choice, for me, methanol is the best fuel to use, easiest to handle by all crew. There's nothing much to do, and you don't need to have, all the precautions you take for the cryogenic fuel. Like, I don't know why to have a QCDC on a methanol bunkering, but I'm not questioning it. But I see it as the easiest and best solution as a future fuel, except, the projection on the production and cost. This is what is missing for methanol. Otherwise, methanol fuel engines are now the best running engine. Iron LPG, LNG fuel engines, they are not good. Methanol, no problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, methanol is a universal product, so it's been used in many applications. We have already many standards in place for boilers, for industrial as an industrial product, in pharmaceutical, for reforming to fuel cell grade hydrogen. All these standards are in place for many years. India has an M15, policy even in place, for 5 years already, to blend methanol and gasoline. China also about 15 years, they've been blending it in gasoline pools to 24, 25%. So we have all this, going for us. So we know a lot about it. We know how it performs. We know what we can expect. We know the safety concerns. So we're not, putting it in on a ship is even easier, believe me, than putting it in a car, bus, or producing jet fuel to put on an airplane. And it's extensively used. Almost the main application now is as using it to produce olefins directly and then feeding it into manufacturing processes in China. So this is mainly a Chinese application. So, but again, shipping is seen as still the top projected consumer, in the near term, followed by aviation, followed by as a hydrogen carrier into chemical processing. So we don't expect that to change much. And given that will probably have likely a greater impact on the price, the end price, because there is a significant push to produce more of it in a green way. There's, literally every week there are new announcements on the technology front, bringing more efficient technology to bear. So we have all that going for us as well. So very encouraging. And just as we saw on the vessel side, we're now, better than I do, Prakash, that on these dual fuel vessels, the engines are now at a third generation, what they consider. So we spent 5-6 years at first generation, then they evolved to second. Now we're at third generation, and more innovations coming. I can say that we're working firsthand, and on all kinds of and these Maersk vessels, the new design incorporate a lot of these innovations. So these are very, very efficient vessels by any assessment. And given the fact that they're dual fuel as well, only lends to their impact. And there are organizations such as Maersk which have a much more aggressive sustainability strategy. So their goal is to be carbon neutral by 2040. So fully 10 years ahead of IMO. So when you see what they're doing, you know it works, and you see where they're going with it, because their plan is to be carbon neutral, in just another 15 years. So for them, they consider time to be their worst enemy. not the technology, not the fuels, not the price, but these are just hurdles, roadblocks that they have to remove to get to carbon neutrality by 2040. So,
Thank you so much, Chris. Of course, methanol has matured now at sea. With the main engines are now performing quite well.
Yeah.
So yes, methanol is having a big potential. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Yeah, Utkarsh had a question for you, Chris.
Utkarsh.
Hello, Chris. First of all, thanks a lot for your such informative session. I was basically working on LNG carriers. From last few years, I was on dual fuel engines with MAN and Wärtsilä engines. Recently, I've shifted to MOL commercial team. I have one question. Firstly, like about this greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, back into 1988, this IPCC was formed. They came up with their reports in 1990, and at that time, it was realized that yes, greenhouse gas emissions, they are real, and the world need to take some actions. I believe we are a little late in taking the action, but now our action, I mean, we are trying to implement it as fast as possible. I mean, the example you gave of Maersk, they ordered 21 vessels methanol fueled, but after the delivery of these vessels, they were facing the challenges for the supply of methanol, for the methanol bunkering. So, I mean, what I have heard that now they are ordering vessels more on the LNG fuel operation.
Not really. I mean, yes, they took delivery of, I think now they have 25, 26, maybe dual fuel vessels. Some already delivered, another 20 on order. But no, they will use any fuel, just as any shipper will use any fuel that will, two things, allow them to be compliant, but also to be competitive. So if those fuels cannot support both of those 2 points, then they just won't adopt it. Yeah, and you can see that in the bulk carrier segment. So they see, yeah, okay, we could. That's why they run on very efficient vessels. They have some of the youngest vessels in the global fleet, but they do not switch fuels because it's they don't need it. They won't be competitive. Yeah. They don't have the ability to transfer these premiums for the expensive fuel to their cargo owners. Liners have a little bit better situation. They can not as easily or not as freely, but they have some ability to transfer some of these premiums, yeah, to cargo owners like the retailers that are booking containers with them, Zemba and others. But yeah, we've always suggested to Maersk to, for example, to don't worry so much about how green it is. That in the beginning, you just have to figure out how to allow your crew to safely handle methanol. Yeah, break in these vessels, running on methanol, of any specification. Doesn't matter if it's gray, black. Just anyway, you're only using fuel oil, so what does it matter? You can always greenify it as much as you want. It just depends on money. That's it. So, but the main thing is to develop these internal ecosystems that will allow you to be, again, efficient and use it efficiently. And I think they're now beginning to understand that. Just as, for example, if I go back 3 years or so before they even, when we were discussing with them about methanol and the benefits, the disadvantages, etc. And even at that time they showed ammonia as a moonshot, yeah. And biogas was something, or methane is something they would like to have, but it's also not available. So the move to announce 6 vessel order for gas-ready vessels, and I think it was announced as some case like LNG, but what they were meaning was biomethane. They won't use LNG because LNG is very limited. It's only 2034, yeah, and then it'll come under very large fines, I can say, because the methane slip hasn't been addressed. So either policy has to change, so you have to have very good confidence in your ability to make an assessment as to what policy will look like by 2034, whether it could be grandfathered in or something. But otherwise, yeah, very high risk that these vessels will become stranded assets, yeah, based on the engine type, or they'll have to be retrofitted for a very large expense, or somehow you'll have to be able to secure biomethane. And anyway, even if it's biomethane, it's still gonna send a lot of slip up into the atmosphere. So it doesn't matter if it's bio or if it doesn't matter what it is. That's why we always say, just when we talk about biogenic CO2, it should be a nice thing to have. And if you can get it, okay, then you should have some maybe additional incentive, yeah. But you shouldn't be penalized for using, say, what we refer to as industrial CO2 or circular CO2, which, by the way, is absolutely allowable in EU as well as around the world from power plants and from cement plants, 2043 and 2044 respectively. So there's no, and that may even change, yeah. Just as we've seen with COP28, many of the European policymakers came away from that event embracing, you could say, carbon capture and storage. And I believe at COP29 in Baku very soon, in a couple of months, we will also see not just carbon capture storage, but we will see carbon capture utilization and storage. So that U in carbon capture will become more prevalent. It's, globally, everyone is now focused on CO2 management and even producing fuels like e-fuels from CO2. So definitely there's not enough biomass, to in an economically efficient manner collect it and process it to biomethane and then get it onto a an LNG, a liquefaction plant. Because then again, it's just mass balance, yeah, which the EU doesn't like either. And we can produce a lot of methanol and ammonia green based on mass balance in existing plants, yeah, even in India and in China for sure. But Europe doesn't want it because they feel that it's any of this bioresource is significantly diluted by being injected into a natural gas pipeline system, grid. So that's what will continue to ensure that European production is the highest, yeah, highest price, I guess.
I mean, if you consider the supply of these fuels, like green hydrogen is almost over $2,000 per ton, ammonia is almost $1,000 to $1,500 per ton, methanol is also close to $1,000 per ton. I'm talking about the green fuel cost. Yeah. And at the moment, we are using less than the 1% of the green fuel. We are mostly using the gray fuels at the moment. We are assuming that in the future, the cost of these productions, it will be lowered, and then it will be cheaper for the ship owners to operate the vessels. Yeah. But I mean, I have seen this from the Clarkson. I saw this HHI, Hyundai Heavy Industries Korea, their ship order book. Most of the vessels, they are being ordered on the LNG fueled engine. I was working on the LNG carriers, both with Wärtsilä and MAN, and there is considerable amount of methane slip. If you see the methane is, I believe, more than 80 times dangerous than carbon dioxide. So at the moment, we are only focusing on CO2 emissions, but this methane emission, maybe after 5 years down the line, we will realize, oh, we have made a big mistake. Now this methane slip is causing, I mean, much more danger to this environment. So
I might just add something here, is that methane is already right on the agenda. It's on the CBAM agenda, which is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Australia has put in the safeguard. It's on the Australian safeguard. It has got a figure of 28 times carbon dioxide. So for every ton of methane, we multiply by 28. So all the coal mines, gas facilities in Australia all do that. It's internationally done already. So it's not even not on the radar. It's actually now mandated here, right through the world. So I think I've actually stopped one of the what was termed as a CNG project, similarly for the mining industry, simply because of methane slip. They can't do it. It's going to be more damaging than having diesel going through it. So you're absolutely right. But it is on the agenda. It's not in the future. It's already there.
So, but my question is, since I mean, if you see the gas carriers, like for instance, LNG carriers, they have a dedicated manifold. So the first thing is, if we see other vessels like container vessels, passenger vessels, they don't have a segregated manifold as such like we have on gas carriers. So I mean, this gas bunkering, even if you see methanol or ammonia, I mean, they have a very congested manifold below the deck. So firstly, the feasibility of connecting the manifold, it will be a great challenge for the ship staff to connect those hoses. And the second thing, sir, which I want to say, I mean, for this LNG carriers, it is still easy because they load the same cargo and the boil off comes to the engine. But for other vessels like container bulk carrier, they have to install a separate tank for the same. So that will be an additional, much additional expenses for the ship owners.
Yeah.
On that, the only thing I will say is that the technology in terms of policing it has gone so high. Today we have satellites now working on picking up methane, and we can backtrack it. So they have these infrared satellites now. So if you were bunkering in about 2 years' time, the satellites would actually be able to pick up your methane plume and you would get pinged for it. That's where the technology is going. I've just done a project here where we've done the satellite monitoring to monitor a coal mine, and we've managed to go back to the year 2019, and we can actually work out how much methane is coming out every day. So this is why I say is that it's not, although it's there, the policing can't come in because we don't have solutions, but we feel that once the solutions come in, governments, it's always, you talk about the almighty dollar, and I think Chris started with the right words, is that the stick is much bigger. And this is where speeding cameras have come up everywhere on roads. It's not about making it safer, it's revenue generation. We know this, and that's the same thing that's going to happen, is that money can then be translated. Because as you all agree, I mean, the issue is, the carbon dioxide issue has become absolutely chronic with EU.
Yeah.
Yes.
Almost to the point where they've not as a criticism, but a bit painted themselves into a corner. And I mentioned with COP28, this was kind of apparent because it was just a couple months after COP28 that the European Union announced a carbon neutrality by 2040 initiative. They call it now EU 2040. And how they will achieve carbon neutrality as a block by 2040 is based on three things. Well, one key technology platform, that's carbon capture, and then two fuel derivatives, mainly ammonia and methanol. That was the end of their announcement. I believe it was February this year. So you're right that we will still be very closely connected to fossil fuels of all types, and in shipping we will we're already moving to make these blends, as you can say, because there's nothing that's completely carbon neutral. And there's also talk of carbon neutrality, but it's connected to carbon capture in this case, and it's also connected to producing a lot of green hydrogen. So and even to produce the equipment, takes a lot of energy. That energy isn't 100% renewable. So we can only give it our best shot, so to speak. So that's why the requirement is only, say, 76% reduction qualifies as green.
Actually, one more thing, as you said about ammonia, sir, even the ammonia combustion yields nitrous oxide, which is also more harmful than carbon dioxide. So, I mean, the only fuel left for future, we can say, is the methanol. I mean, the best fuel which can be suited, seeing the future 5 years down the line.
I mean, who knows? We may even see molten salt reactors onboarded on vessels before we see ammonia come into commercialization as a ship fuel. Yeah, I've no doubt that ammonia will be used as a power plant decarbonization, co-firing feed, but say for coal-fired plants, but as a ship fuel, let's see. I mean, we still have a lot of time that is required to bring these types of vessels again to full commerciality. So in the meantime, these are liquid markets, and yeah, you're right. Methanol it's say in between biofuel and say fuel oil. So it's it's almost a drop-in, and we can retrofit, existing commercial, combustion engines, marine engines, two-stroke or four-stroke, doesn't matter. We can do all types, and we're now working on at the IMO level introducing a new storage innovations that do not require the use of a cofferdam. So that will basically equalize the energy density of bringing, say, low flashpoint fuels on board, at least in methanol's case, to the point where it's almost on par with fuel oil. So there will be no penalty, so to speak, with respect to space, containers, or cubic meters on board a bulk carrier to carry methanol. And as we already seen, and we already have experience in many applications, methanol doesn't even require a redundant fuel. That's just a class rule that, but in other applications, we've never had two fuels on board just in case methanol fails. Methanol is more fail-safe, you could say, and the methanol system, fuel delivery system, is also, I would say, more bulletproof than these gas systems, which are a bit volatile. They're cryogenic, so material compatibility is also a big issue, big concern. So, yeah, I mean, and we're quite open about that to encourage the other alternative fuels to pay attention to this, because the market needs all of them, really, and there will be different voyages and vessels that can benefit, substantially from any of these fuels. So, like I say, we'll need all of them to be successful at what we're all trying to get to collectively. So we need a lot of collaboration, and we need a lot more, open-mindedness, just to be willing to work together. And if ammonia is the best fit for a particular voyage, then let's do it. Yeah? Or biomethane, if we have access to it and we can onboard it, let's try. We'll gladly take a step to the side and let them pass and go ahead with their project. But at the moment, yeah, you're right. Looks a bit lopsided towards methanol. So we're doing what we can to push that ahead. There's time working against us.
Sir, one last question. I mean, since you are in this energy sector, I mean, have you ever seen any order across, like, for any gas carriers? Like, if you say LNG or LPG, they have a separate tank dedicated for methanol or ammonia. I mean, what I know is that they are using their same cargo in their main engines for the propulsion. But have you encountered any cases where they are using any LNG carrier using methanol or ammonia, or any LPG ethane carriers, they are using some other fuel?
Yeah, we have a few now, VLCCs. So these are typically, utilizing VOCs, yeah. But with the retrofits, they have dedicated methanol fuel tanks, and they still are required to maintain fuel oil on board. But so that's always been an issue as well, because methanol is only half the energy density of, say, fuel oil. But yeah, going forward with, again, some innovations around, say, even ventilation in enclosed spaces. We've done some work on that at the IMO level, and these are being accepted and supported. So, it's bringing down the OPEX, gradually. And the addition of these new fuel storage systems will make it even more efficient, make it more competitive, and make it more accessible, you could say, for these types of vessels that don't particularly have a lot of extra space, to onboard the fuel itself. So that's also coming. And then there are, even with respect to the addition of ethanol, because even at the IGF code, it was always proposed as methyl ethyl alcohol. So ethanol hasn't really played a major role to date, but that's changing. And methanol and ethanol are completely miscible products. They can be blended very easily. ethanol has, again, about the same energy density as fuel oil, but it also has a double carbon bond, whereas methanol has a single carbon bond. So that's why it's less energy dense, but still you're carrying quite a bit of hydrogen between these two molecules. So blending them or denaturing them together is, can also be, something interesting. And we see a lot of interest in that as well too. That will also impact the energy density on board with two fuels that are completely compatible and miscible together. So.
Chris,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, for an awesome explanation to all the questions which were asked. I have a question, like, what does Green Marine exactly do, and how people who have joined the meeting, if they want any help in your Green Marine expertise or your expertise? So, like, I guess it will be great if you can explain about the work that you at Green Marine have been doing, and how you can help shipping company representatives who have joined the session or will be listening to the recording of the session later.
Yeah, sure. The partners within Green Marine have all been closely associated with the development of methanol as a marine fuel, and then throughout the course of the development of methanol as a fuel, we're working very closely with other alternative fuels as we're sort of grouped together at the IMO level and also at the European level, because they cannot adopt specific policy to one fuel without taking into consideration the other fuels. So we've been involved in all these discussions, all these main discussions and debates at all the top levels over the years, and we've been able to, I can say, even guide the development of methanol as a marine fuel until it's reached, more recently, it's a kind of commercial turning point where we have not only product carriers in service, but practically all of the vessel types, to include bunkering vessels now entering service, which are methanol compatible. So we've been involved in three main areas. These are our core competencies of, on the design and construction of dual fuel technology vessels. We provide technical policy validation for new builds and retrofits. We also then are getting involved on the training side very heavily. I can say one trend now in that space is many organizations training up their shore-based staff on, say, methanol, with the expectation that they will begin to order methanol dual fuel vessels, or they already have ordered dual fuel vessels, and now they need to understand how to operate them. So we're involved in a lot of training in that respect. And then due to the fact that it's a very nascent market, the production side, we're getting involved as say, bankers expert witness and things like this on the production side. So in that space, we look a lot at the technology itself, whether it's gasification or the electrolysis, or maybe it's the maybe it's the CO2 or the capture. We're looking at syngas production. Many aspects of the production process itself, and as well as the trading. So we're looking to supply, and I would imagine that at some point we will even move into bunkering it, because we know a lot about it, and it's also an area that we will likely naturally come to in the end. So that's more or less what we do. So ship design and construction, training, and trading, supply.
Excellent. And if it is okay, you can share your email can we share your email with the audience who have joined today?
Yeah, absolutely. I can
definitely
more information maybe on the
And people who have any question regarding the same and can directly contact Chris and his company for the expertise, even for small shipping companies who are looking towards methanol or green fuel. I guess in future we won't be left with this, won't be an option, or rather it will become a compulsion as we go towards carbon neutrality. So that is something that even small shipping companies managing less ship should have in mind. And thank you once again, Chris, for being an awesome mentor today and answering all the questions patiently. Everyone joined today has learned a lot, and everyone who will watch the recording of the session would also learn a lot.
Yeah, happy to answer any more questions, or please, be in touch either through yourself, Pratik, or directly.
Definitely. If anyone has any question they would like to ask, they are more than welcome. We already exceeded the time. I guess we should. Hello, Prakash sir wants to.
No, I have no question. I just want to say thank you to Chris to come and address us. Thank you.
Congratulations, Prakash.
Hey, thank you so much. When are you coming to Hong Kong?
Soon. Yeah.
Okay. Look forward.
Thank you once again for being so awesome, Chris, and we wish you all the best in your journey towards making climate greener again through green fuels. And we all will be following your journey and methanol's journey in shipping and beyond. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you and I appreciate. Thank you very much. Have a great day, all of you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you next week with another exciting session. Thank you.
Great. It was great, actually. Good knowledge. And I'm going to distribute this knowledge to all the students in the college. Thank you and I appreciate. Bye.
Yeah, thanks.